moment of glory is over before it's begun. If the dream is
This is mic number 1. This is going to be one of the wandering mics in the audience. Testing 1, 2, 3. Everything sounding right on that? Yeah, fine. Testing. I will keep talking. Testing 1, 2, 3. Check 1, 2. Good evening, everyone. We're here at town meeting. We're doing an audio check. This is a... Good. Sounded good in there? Stand by. Here it comes. All right, this is mic number 2 audio test. Testing 1, 2, 3. Check 1, 2. Test 1, 2. Handheld. Testing 1, 2, 3. Gotcha. Nope, no problem. There will be a delay, so we're going to wait for a second so we can hear it coming across. This is the mic number 2, which is the handheld mic. Perfect. And out.
Good evening, everyone. We're about 9 people away from starting the meeting, so I want to thank everyone here for coming tonight, and we'll be underway in about 5 to 10 minutes, hopefully, and we'll go from there, all right? Thanks.
Push it down. So you want to try push it down.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name's Joe Mark. I'm the town moderator. I have the pleasure of facilitating this meeting tonight. I'd ask that everyone please silence their cell phones. We're going to get the meeting underway. We've reached a quorum. We're at 175 right now. There's still a number of people coming in tonight. We have a special guest with us tonight. He's attended 3 past town meetings. It's Don Gentile's son, Wesley, who's going to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. So if everyone would please stand, he's going to lead us.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Wesley. The following non-resident town official and department heads have been asked to be admitted to the town meeting tonight and respond to questions, speak on issues before the town meeting this evening. Without objection, they may be seated. Town Administrator Rob Dolan, Assistant Town Administrator Robert Curtin, Town Council Tom Mullen, Julianne McCarthy, our Town Accountant, Victor Santarello, Assessing Director, Linda Emerson, our Town Clerk, Wendy LaRoviere, Leslie Davidson, Emily Cadamatori, Don Lyons, Joe O'Callahan, John Tomas, Linda Nakara, Pat Kelly, Abby Porter, Lisa DeMeo, Nick Saccatori. Without objection, they may be seated. The following non-voters have been asked to be admitted to town meeting, members of the press and guests. We have Dan Tomasello, Libby O'Neill. Without objection, they may be seated. Thank you. I hold in my hand the return to service for this town meeting. Without objection, I'll waive the reading of the return to service. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you all for coming tonight. I know we don't have hot button items on the agenda. It's the first meeting that we don't have a big ticket item. We do have another number of important budget items to get through tonight and other warrant articles. A few quick things about the format of the meeting tonight. We'll be using electronic clickers. We'll do a test vote tonight to show you how to use those. It's pretty simple. It's like using a TV clicker. You'll press yes or no to vote tonight. When I say polling is open, you'll have 10 seconds to vote on an article tonight. So what will happen is one of the members of the Board of Selectmen will read the article, or the agenda item that we're voting on tonight. They'll second it. I'll read it back, and then I'll open it up for an explanation from a board member or a town employee to explain the article. And then after doing so, I'll call a vote after we have debate on the floor. If you'd like to speak tonight, please rise. I'll have someone bring you a microphone, or you can utilize the podium in the front. We have a gentleman with a microphone in the back. Just wave your hand so everyone can see you. Just please state your name and address. Just keep things courteous here tonight. We're all neighbors, and we'll get through the items in the agenda pretty fast, and we'll have you on your way. So Article 1. Mr. Cannell.
Preliminary motion. First of all, thanks everyone for being here tonight in attendance. I move that if necessary, the annual town meeting be adjourned to Monday, May 1st, 2023 at 7 p.m. in the middle school auditorium, gymnasium, and cafeteria, should the business of the meeting not be completed tonight.
Is there a second? Article, the preliminary motion has been moved and seconded. Is there any debate on motion 1? Hearing and seeing none, we'll proceed to a voice vote on this. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The ayes have it. We'll proceed to a test vote. Can we pull up a test slide? We'll open up voting. Once we see the, I believe it's a green dot in the corner. Yes. So polling's now open. So it's either 1A or 2B. So it's 122 to 26. Perfect. So we'll proceed to Article 1. Mr. Crawford.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I move to accept the reports of town officers and special committees as published.
I'll second that motion.
Article 1's been moved and seconded. Is there a recommendation from the Board of Selectmen?
The Select Board recommends Article 1.
Recommendation from the Finance Committee?
The Finance Committee recommends Article 1.
This is a standard article that's on every town meeting warrant in April. We're accepting the town reports. Is there any debate concerning this article? Hearing and seeing none, we'll proceed to a vote on Article 1. You can pull up the slide. Polling is now open. Article 1 passes by majority. Article 2, Mr. Dalton.
I move that the town vote to choose all town officers not required to be chosen by ballot as follows: Robert McKendrick, David Crockett, and Christopher Barrett as field drivers, David Crockett as pound keeper, and Kenneth Burnham, David Crockett, and Robert McKendrick as wood measurers.
Second.
Article 2 has been moved and seconded. This is another standard article warrant that's been voted on at every town meeting. Is there any debate concerning this article? Hearing and seeing none, we'll proceed to a vote on Article 2. Can you pull up the slide, please? Polling is now open. Article 2 carries by a majority. Article 3, Mr. Cannell.
I move the town vote to fix the compensation of each of the elected officers of the town as required by general laws, Chapter 41, Section 108, as amended as follows. Select Board Chair, $850, and members at $700. Board of Assessors Chair at $4,100, and members at $3,550.
Second.
Article 3 has been moved and seconded. This is a standard article that's been on the town meeting warrant every year. The compensation for elected officials has not changed in years. Is there any debate concerning this article? Hearing and seeing none, we'll proceed to a vote on Article 3. And we'll open polling now. Article 3 passes by majority. We'll move on to Article 4. Mr. Crawford.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I move that the town vote to appropriate by transfer from free cash and existing fiscal year 2023 appropriation accounts the sums listed in the handout booklet under the heading Article 4 to the accounts listed in said handout in order to balance the FY 2023 budget.
I'll second that motion.
Article 4 has been moved and seconded. Is there a recommendation from the Board of Selectmen?
The Selectmen recommend Article 4.
Is there a recommendation from the Finance Committee?
The Finance Committee recommends Article 4.
Brief explanation from our Town Administrator.
This is a accounting measure to reconcile the budget. Throughout the long fiscal year, there are certain line items that need additional revenue and some line items in which there is surplus. So at the end of the year, the accountant goes through each of these line items, transfers to balance the budget at the end of the fiscal year.
Is there any debate concerning Article 4? Hearing and seeing none, we'll proceed to a vote on Article 4. Can we pull up the slide? Voting will now be open concerning Article 4. Article 4 passes by a majority. Article 5, Mr. Dalton.
I move that the town vote to appropriate by transfer from free cash the sums listed in the handout booklet under the heading Article 5.
Second.
Article 5 has been moved and seconded. Is there a recommendation from the Board of Selectmen?
The Select Board recommends Article 5.
Is there a recommendation from the Finance Committee?
The Finance Committee recommends Article 5.
Brief explanation.
There are two bills from the prior fiscal year, and we plan on paying them.
That's great to know. So
Thank you.
Article 5 does require a 4/5 vote to pass, so I hope everyone supports it. Is there any debate concerning Article 5? Hearing and seeing none, we'll proceed to a vote on Article 5, which does require a 4/5 vote to pass. Polling will now open. Article 5 passes. Article 6, Mr. Cannell.
I move that the town vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $64,752,122 and the appropriate transfer of the sums of $30,000, the sales of lots and graves fund, $22,649 from receipts reserved, betterments of $60,000 from the overlay surplus, and $185,946 from the cable PEG access fund for the necessary town charges and expenses as presented by the Select Board and as shown in the Town Warrant and Finance Committee report booklet beginning on page 8 thereof.
Second.
Article 6 has been moved and seconded. Is there a recommendation from the Board of Selectmen?
The Board of Selectmen recommend Article 6.
Is there a recommendation from the Finance Committee?
The Finance Committee recommends Article 6.
Brief explanation from our town administrator or town accountant.
This is our FY24 operating budget.
Article 6 is the operating budget. Article 6.
All right, so we're going to go through the budget page by page. So the budget starts on page 9 of the handout you received tonight. That handout is titled Fiscal 2024 Annual Town Warrants, Select Board's Budget with Recommendations of the Finance Committee. So are there any questions concerning page 9? We'll move to page 10. Yes, Mrs. Campbell.
I'm referring to line item number 2. I want to remind people that we are the Oversight Committee for the Selectmen and for the Finance Committee. And with that in mind, I move that the town administrator's salary be limited to the $10,709 increase that he received under the revised fiscal year 23 budget. If you'll notice the third column after the town administrator's salary. Rather than an additional $15,676, which in my opinion is excessive. I find that the towns used to compare administrator salaries are not valid for several reasons. Not knowing about the perks, what the perks amount to, and our population is very small at 12,408 people.
Is there further debate? Yes, Mr. Crawford.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. The increase in the town administrator's salary was a decision of the Board of Selectmen. It was approved by the Finance Committee. And as the chair last year, I did look at his salary structure as his contract came up for renewal. I looked at 15 comparable towns to the town of Lynnfield. We looked at population, we looked at time spent in the position, we looked at all the perks that everybody was getting in addition to their base salary, and we found that not only was he significantly underpaid compared to his counterparts, but we feel that Town Administrator Dolan's one of the finest in the Commonwealth, and that not only did we feel that it should be done for his position, but it was well deserved. So when we looked at the comparison towns, the range was anywhere from 210 to 225. So even with the increase, he still is at the lower end of his peer group. But he was happy with that. We were happy with that. And we voted as a board to support that increase, which we believe was very much deserved. So thank you.
Thank you. So we'll move on to, we were on page 10. Now we'll move to 11 and 12. What's that? Okay, Mrs. Campbell, my prerogative is to move through the budget, and then we can vote on the budget. We can vote on the motion to amend, but I'd like to get debate done with the entire budget. So we're going to move on to page 12. Is there any debate concerning that? Mrs. Campbell, Town Council has asked that you please reduce your motion to writing, so we can please read it back to the meeting, if that's possible.
So, Mrs. Campbell, this is Tom Mullen. I'm the Town Council. I've written this out. Let me just ask if it's okay with you. I move that the Town Administrator's salary be increased to $196,824 rather than the proposed $212,500. Is that what you wanted?
I don't recognize it in that form. May I approach?
Sure. Mrs. Campbell's motion to amend is as follows. I move that the Town Administrator's salary be set at $196,824. Mrs. Campbell, is that what you want?
To Linda, yeah. So the motion to amend is I move that the town administrator's salary be set at $196,824. And there's a second. Is there further debate regarding this motion to amend? Yes, Mr. Conley. Can you just wait for the microphone so everyone can hear you? Thank you. No problem.
Stephen Connolly, 17 Townsend Road. Does that imply, I'm a little confused by the voted and revised. So is the salary for our town administrator, who does a fantastic job, by the way, at $196,824 for the last fiscal year?
That would be a question for town council or the town accountant.
The town administrator's contract renews at the beginning of February, so it's a mid-fiscal year increase.
Right. So the fiscal 23 was based on a salary of $196,824?
Yes, Mr. Crawford.
The raise happens mid-year, so that's why you see the increase for 23. That's because his contract doesn't come up on the fiscal year of
Gotcha.
July 1st, comes up on February.
So I'm just trying to understand.
So the revised is partial, part of his increase under the new contract.
Right. So if I'm understanding correctly, the revised 196,824 would actually seem to me that there'd be no increase for FY24 based upon his revised FY23.
Correct. Yeah,
So
she's amending the increase.
One of the better town administrators that you've just said, we'd be advocating for no raise during a period of significant inflation.
Correct.
That doesn't sound right to me.
Is there further debate regarding this motion to amend? Yes, Ms. Campbell.
It's not unusual for someone to get a raise in the middle of a year. And this is what happened this year. The town administrator went from $186,115 to $196,824, which was an increase already this year of $10,709. In addition to that, they want him to receive another $15,676, which would be $26,385 increase. He did know what he was making when he came here, and he has had regular increases.
Mr. Dalton.
I think the point that's not being made here very clearly is that you pay for what you get. And there's a market rate for town administrators. And we have one of the very best, and he's not being paid at the top of the scale. So either you pay for, whether it's a town administrator, a fire chief, a police chief, a DPW director, you have to, at one point, pay the rate, or you're not going to attract the quality people.
Thank you, Mr. Dalton. Further debate? Yes, gentleman in the back.
Hi, John Nunziato, 23 Cortlandt Lane. It was mentioned, in addition to the salary increases proposed, that there were perks that the administrator gets. Could someone list those out or discuss those?
Mr. Dolan, you want to answer that?
The budgeted I had no further income outside that salary. Now, the budget salary you vote for, that's the total compensation.
Thank you, Mr. Dolan. Further debate? Yes. Yes, ma'am.
Abigail Kilgore, 7 Melch Road. I just want to confirm that the 196,824 is only the salary received between July and July. It's not annualized to the new number that it would be if it had been an annual true salary, right? It's only showing the raise from February through July. So it really is, if it was his annual salary, it would be more than the 196. So the increase isn't necessarily 15,000, correct?
Correct.
Thank you for your question. Further debate? Hearing and seeing none, we'll proceed to a vote on the motion amend, which is Mrs. Campbell moved that the town administrator's salary be set at $196,824. Now, we can do this in two ways, and I'll ask the meeting. Do we want to do this by voice vote, or do we want to do it with the clickers? Clickers? Okay. Can you pull up a slide? Oh, she already made it. So what we'll do is, so this does require a majority vote to pass. So we'll open polling right now. Polling's now open. So the motion fails. We'll proceed back to the operating budget, and we'll move to page 11 and 12. Yes, ma'am, we have a question.
Walsh Townsend Road. I guess I can make a motion to redo that because I think you need to clarify what yes is and what no is on that prior vote.
So the bylaws of the town actually let the moderator decide whether there's a motion to reconsider allowed. It's been my policy all the way back to the rail trail meetings. I don't take motions to reconsider. That's just a policy that I've set since I've been elected. So I'm not going to entertain your motion right now. I did explain it. So we're going to move on to page 12. Are there any questions concerning page 12? We'll move to page 13. Yes, Mrs. Campbell.
We're on page 12, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Line 40, Personnel Board. There is no Personnel Board. It's in our charter, and it has a very good reason. And you'll see that on the facing page on the right-hand side under the description of line 40. The Personnel Board is supposed to help with negotiations and advice on labor law. That's a great thing, but they don't use it. They don't use it. I would like to see more expertise on negotiations and labor law. I think it would be to our benefit. So, tell us why we have that. I can't even see my bottom line, but it's $5,000 or so. Tell us why we have that there and why we don't have a personnel board.
Thank you, Mrs. Campbell. Mr. Curtin.
Many years ago, under the reign of former town administrator Bill Gustus, the personnel board expressed a desire not to any longer participate in the contract negotiations with town unions, feeling they were ill-prepared to do so because they didn't work in town. They weren't as conversant with what other towns and communities were paying. They didn't. There are many things that go into a negotiation of a contract that are about management rights, various working conditions that really people who work in town did. So since that time, it's been conducted by the town administrator with my assistance and the assistance of the department heads in terms of management prerogatives. The amount budgeted is for, if there is need, the personnel board, the last personnel board undertaking was a revision of the personnel bylaw. And at that time, our personnel board said they were basically standing down, but are available if there is a special project that the board, the select board or the town administrator needs done. So, so we have the money in the budget in case there is a need for the personnel board, and also the professional services line item is used in case we need to go to arbitration with one of our unions or one of our personnel. So that money generally goes to arbitration cases.
Thank you, Mr. Curtin. Mr. Walsh, I believe you have a question, comment.
Moderator Michael Walsh from 7 Townsend Road. If I can, through you, direct a question to Town Council. It's my understanding that if we had a working personnel board, it would provide us with 2 statutory advantages, one of which is that it would insulate our any grievances with our local employees would be handled at a local level and be unappealable to the state level. And secondly, I understand that if we have a functioning personnel board, I think it's under Section 108M, I believe our local personnel bylaws are no longer subject to review by the Attorney General's office and their approval. Is that correct?
Okay, with respect to your first point, I think you asked whether if the personnel board were fully staffed, that it would insulate us from grievances. And I'm sorry, I don't see how that would work at all. And your second point, I think, was what? Whether bylaws have to continue to be approved by the Attorney General?
Mr. Moderator, I was asking whether the second point was, I believe that personnel bylaws, internal administration are exempt from Attorney General review if we have a personnel board that is functioning.
I'm not aware of any exception like that in Chapter 40, Section 32. So, no, I believe the Attorney General must review and approve all bylaws of towns.
Thank you, Mr. Mullen. Thank you, Ms. Walsh. Further debate on page 14, I believe we're at now. 12, 13, 14. Move to page 15. Page 16. Yes, Ms. Campbell.
Thank you. Let's take a look at highway costs and sidewalk costs. Highway, I don't know how to get us to fix our main roads. The main roads are disreputable. And if you're doing, as you have done in the past couple of years, side roads, the benefit of the repaving does not extend to many of us driving around in our cars on the main roads. And also, I've pointed this out in years before, line 69, $25,000 for sidewalks. $25,000 would probably cover the bottom of one person's driveway to be repaved. So, I hope you hear me, that we need, I did speak with John Tomaz. He's a fine DPW director. And what he said was that we can refinish the worst parts of the main roads. And I go for that idea, and I certainly hope you do, because some of us have little cars, not big SUVs. And it's tough on the cars to be bumping over all those bumps. Somebody from Lynn embarrassed me to no end the other day and said, our streets in Lynn are better than yours in Lynnfield. And I believe she's right.
Come on, Mrs. Campbell, don't pick on Lynn. But I do agree with you. Our roads could need a thing or two, John. I'm not picking on you. No, I think we're fine. There's a gentleman right here who has a question.
Hi, I'm Jordan Hedges from 31 Chatham Way. I just wondered, how do we come up with a budget of $564,000 for the roads, which is, you know, basically less than 1% of the total budget?
Mr. Dolan.
Hi, thank you for your question. Roads actually this fiscal year funded $1.2 million, which is the largest sum of money the town of Lynnfield has ever assigned for roads, because that comes from three sources, right? The first source is the appropriation that we have from the town. The second source is state funding. And then the third source is usually some grants called like pothole grants or different monies that we get from different sources that we cobble together for to create a road project. The roads are evaluated by an independent company every 3 years to ensure that we are hitting the roads that are most used, worst condition. Sometimes we work with National Grid and Lynnfield Center Water District to the Water District to work together to make sure that we don't do a road and it gets dug up a few years later. So over the last 2 years, the select board has made roads a priority. And in past years, I think when I started, we were spending about, around $500,000 to $800,000 on roads. And I'm very happy to say the last 2 years, we've exceeded $1.2 million. And that's a success, I believe, because of the inflation that we spent not only on, that we're spending on all services. So if you add up the state money, the local money, and that grant money, it's going to be $1.2 million. And the number of roads we're doing can be found on the webpage.
So is that the salary number? It comes to $1.2 million?
You take it.
The amount he's referring to is part of the capital budget, which is the next article.
So it's a different article.
Thank you, sir. Now we'll move to page 17 and 18. Yes, Mrs. Campbell.
I'm still on line 75, school maintenance and buses. The buses are in control of the school committee. 15 buses. We have 15 buses, most with a capacity of 71 or more. But they're never filled to capacity. They're running all over town, burning diesel fuel in some cases, adding to the greenhouse gases, causing pollution and climate change. There's also a 10% increase in the cost of fuel. Maybe, after all these years of me asking them to do something about this situation, maybe we should add the cost to the school committee budget, and then maybe the school committee will do something about it, because it is not the DPW director's in his wheelhouse to change it.
Thank you, Mrs. Campbell. We're now on page 18, 19, and 20. Page 21. Page 21, page 22, which is the final page of the budget. Is there any further debate? Anyone besides Mrs. Campbell? You spoke a couple times. I'm going to allow you to say one more thing, but is there anyone besides Mrs. Campbell who'd like to speak? And then we'll close the debate. All right, Mrs. Campbell.
Hi. You will notice all the line items that we had previously. And now look on page 20 at 92, 93, and 94. 3 line items for the entire school budget. The bottom line here says $33,738,596. But if you add what was on school maintenance and buses, that's another $3,716,000. So the total for the schools far exceeds half of our budget. $37,454,904. Now, we have crossed a very serious bridge this year because we are no longer providing our selectmen, our finance committee, or our citizens like me that have collected the line item budget every year. I can't collect it this year because they're claiming they don't have one. So how did our selectmen and our finance committee make a recommendation for the school budget if they don't even know what went into the bottom line? And don't tell me again this year, as they've told me every year, what I already know, that the line items are the responsibility of the school board. Yes, they are. They switch them around. But even how would they even know what to switch around if there's no line items? So I am going to go further in this Commonwealth and to our senators as well to say that Lynnfield no longer has a line item budget with which they can be more transparent with their citizens. This is a very serious problem. Things are going to be hidden from you with the largest part of our budget. And I am very, very worried about it. And you should be too.
So we'll proceed to a vote on Article 6. Article 6 has been moved and seconded. Pull up the slide, Jessica. Oh, Mr. McKenzie. I apologize. I didn't see you up there.
Wallace McKenzie, 4 Debston Lane. Would anybody from the Board of Selectmen, School Committee, Town Administrator, or Finance Committee care to comment on Mrs. Campbell's question?
Don't all jump at once. Mr. Dolan, I nominate you.
I've been a chief executive of a municipality since 2001. That's almost half my life. School budgets in every place I've ever worked have always been the largest of the budgets because, particularly in a town like Lynnfield, that prides itself in its schools. In fact, some of the top schools in the Commonwealth, and we know that money doesn't solve all problems, but we take great pride in having the finest schools. And having been here for 6 years, I've seen how fine they are. I also have been through many budget processes, and I have never seen a more transparent, open budget that is voted on in the most democratic way possible through the New England Open Town Meeting in my entire life. And I would never advocate for a lack of transparency on this largest budget. And I know this budget as well as I've known any budget in terms of the schools. Our schools spend their money in a way that is purposeful for direct services for students. And I think we should be very proud of the budget we passed tonight. And I look at you, each of you, as someone that loves working in this community, that we have a fully transparent budget as anyone else in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dolan. Yes, ma'am. This will be the last question before we move to a vote.
Rose McConey, Summer Street. I know you're saying you're transparent, but I have grandchildren in this town. I've been going to meetings on CRT, wearing masks, gender identity, and I've been told they don't teach CRT. And I saw at the school committee meeting, they were training the teachers to teach CRT. So when I asked the superintendent directly, she wrote me a letter and says they don't teach it, which is what they're doing across the country. They're changing CRT to 3 other letters, but doing the same thing. And I was told at the high school, there's now 3 genders. Female, male, and other, I guess. I don't know what the third one is. But so we're not transparent. In Lynnfield, I'm just shocked at what's going on and that nobody knows about this stuff. And I can't understand these parents that their jobs come first and they're not making their voices heard.
We're going to proceed to a vote on Article 6. Article 6 has been moved and seconded. Pull up the slide. Polling will now open once you see the numbers on the screen. Polling's now open. Article 6 passes by majority. The motion carries. We'll move to Article 7. Mr. Crawford.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I move the town vote, A, to authorize the purchase of various equipment and items in the nature of capital expenditures as presented by the Select Board and shown in the town warrant booklet and Finance Committee report on pages 23 and 24 thereof, and to authorize the various town boards, commissions, and officers to credit the value of old equipment to be turned in towards the purchase of said items. B, to authorize the Department of Public Works, upon the recommendation of the Select Board and under General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 21C, to enter into a lease purchasing finance agreement for the acquisition of 2 school buses, the term of such agreement not to exceed 5 years, which is equal to or less than the useful life of the said buses as determined by the Select Board. C, in order to fund the foregoing purchases and lease purchase payments, to appropriate by transfer of sums of $1,565,560 from free cash, $150,000 from cable receipt reserve, $250,000 from emergency medical services enterprise retained earnings, and $65,369 from golf enterprise retained earnings, and D, to appropriate the sum of $850,000 to pay the cost of purchasing and equipping a fire pumper truck, including the payment of all costs incidental and related thereto, and that to meet the appropriation, the treasurer, with the approval of the Select Board, is authorized to borrow said amount under the purchase of General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 7(1), or pursuant to any other enabling authority, and to issue bonds or notes of the town therefore, provided that the amount authorized to be borrowed by the vote shall be reduced to the extent of any grants or gifts received and applied by the town to pay the cost of acquiring equipment and acquiring this equipment. Thank you.
I'll second that motion.
Article 7's been moved and seconded. Is there a recommendation concerning Article 7 from the Board of Selectmen?
The Select Board recommend Article 7.
Is there a recommendation from the Finance Committee?
The Finance Committee recommends Article 7.
Brief explanation from the Town Administrator or Town Accountant.
This is the capital budget. I think it's very robust. addresses some of the major issues, a few being a new pumper truck for the fire department, which is needed, new vehicles for the police department, as well as a number of infrastructure issues that I think are important for the community.
Thank you, Mr. Dolan. Is there debate regarding Article 7 on the floor? Yes, Mr. Conley. Right in the middle.
Thank you. Steve Connolly, 17 Townsend Road. Mr. Crawford, I noticed that there wasn't anything related to fields updates on the capital expenses. I know you've been very active in the past about updates to fields, the tennis courts, track and field. I just wonder if there was anything that should be included, or are we pretty much done with a lot of the field efforts that have been going on in town over the last 5 to 7 years? Thanks.
Quickly, the fields are being renovated through the Fields Maintenance Fund, which was put together when we put the fields in so they could self-fund renovations. So those will be taken care of. And the tennis courts and the new at the high school that are going to be renovated are funded. And that's actually going to go out to bid next week. So we'll see that happen. But that funding's already in place. So thank you.
Further debate regarding Article 7? Yes.
Hello. Hi, I'm Stephanie Slate, 64 Canterbury Road. I'm just curious if the vehicles we're purchasing are EV or if they will be on diesel. What types of vehicles are you purchasing for the town?
Mr. Dolan?
Yeah, we're purchasing a pumper truck, which will be diesel. 2 police cruisers that will also be gasoline, as well as an ambulance that will be gasoline.
Yes. Right here. One moment. Thank you.
This is Maria Donovan, 368 Main Street. I think the last question is really good, and I would like to know why we can't buy EV cars or trucks.
Mr. Dolan?
Well, with police cruisers, I don't think that would be practical, right? You can, we could look at it. We are working with, we are taking a real good look about green vehicles, I have to tell you. We've met with the Reading Light that is going to be able to provide us some more additional electrical chargers and some grants that would allow us to purchase some vehicles. Where it was before, we were able to get grants as a green community, which is something we might debate in the future. There are pros and cons to that allowed us to purchase some electric vehicles for, say, building inspection, for some of our day-to-day inspectional services. But as of right now, we have not purchased vehicles like pumper trucks or police cruisers that are electric or any modern energy-saving devices. We have not done that yet.
So, excuse my ignorance, but you said that, of course, we would do it for police cars. Why is that?
Oh, Chief, I don't know if you want to talk about that. They probably do exist. We just haven't purchased them yet. Do you want to talk about police cruisers? And I don't know if you want to. You use my mic, Chief. Use my mic.
Yes, ma'am. So police vehicles can be purchased in the hybrid model. A fully electric police vehicle, roughly the only ones that have proven reasonable are administrative vehicles, because we'd have to expand the number of vehicles we had if we were running them 24/7. Electric vehicles, they need time to charge, they need downtime. So if we were to purchase a administrative electric vehicle, roughly looking at about $80,000. Some communities have done that. The Ford Mustang's about $70,000, $80,000 outfitted. They are buying Teslas for somewhat less than that, but they are much more than the $35,000 to $45,000 vehicles we're purchasing now. We have not moved to hybrid vehicles. We run all gasoline, non-turbo, 6-cylinder engines in our fleet. We are trying to keep them aligned until we make the move. because we don't want to have one hybrid vehicle in a fleet of 14 that's different. So we have state aligned. A hybrid vehicle is roughly $3,500 to $4,500 more expensive. We don't have a measure of if it would save anything, but your answer is we have not moved to hybrid for those reasons.
Thank you for your explanation, Chief.
So I hope that this is something that is considered by the town, because this is a really important thing. Sustainability is really important for our world. So
Please know, everything is being considered. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. I believe the gentleman in the back in the gray.
Anthony Marusco, 10 Village Road. This Pillings Pond dredge feasibility, are we talking about dredging Pillings Pond again?
Mr. Dolan.
Emily, if you could grab this one. Chairman of the Conservation Commission is here.
Yes, Mr. Gentile.
Hi, everyone. Don Gentile, Chair of the Conservation Commission. I'm also a member of the Pillings Pond Subcommittee. As everyone here would agree, I think Pillings Pond is one of the primary resources we have here in town and one of the most important that we have here in town. The problem is it has some serious issues. As many of you know, half of Pillings Pond was dredged back in the 1990s, but that work was stopped. So the northern part of Pillings Pond near Bellevue Island was never dredged. And because of that, Pillings Pond, and specifically that area, is experiencing some severe water quality issues that many of us experienced last summer. We saw the condition of the pond. Not only that, but the pond on that side is actually filling itself in. Because sedimentation occurs in the water, it sinks to the bottom, and it piles up. So some portions of that area of the pond are extremely shallow. If you've ever fished there, you know that 1 foot deep, 2 feet deep. Eventually, that half of Pillings Pond will actually fill in and become a meadow. I don't know how long that would take, but it's working its way towards that. The Pillings Pond Subcommittee is a subcommittee of the Conservation Commission that looks at Pillings Pond issues. They reached out to an engineering firm called ESS in Waltham and said, we have issues with this pond, what can we do about it? ESS suggested that we do a viability study to do two things. It would assess the current state of the pond, so we know exactly what we're dealing with. It would involve soil samples and depth samples in different parts of the pond. And the second part would be a viability study as to next steps. And the major question as to next steps is whether or not it would be viable to dredge that side of the pond or portions of the pond in order to increase the health of the pond. So in answering the gentleman's question, we're far away from actually proposing that we dredge part of the pond. What we're asking you for tonight in conjunction with the select board is $48,000 in order to have this engineering firm, ESS, undertake this analysis to tell us where we stand today and what the viability is of solving the problems that we have. So I hope that answers the question.
Thank you for the explanation.
Sure.
Is there further debate regarding Article 7? This is a gentleman in the back.
Antonio Carangelo, 8 Chatham Way. I'm looking at a line item called technology and under the school department. I have two questions. And I'm curious, $250,000 for technology. Why is this a line item here and not under the school budget? That's my first question. Then my second question is, I look at all this budget and I don't see any line item here for other funds that get appropriated such as monies coming from the millionaire's tax and the gambling. Where does that show up in the budget, and how does that get allocated when that money comes into the town?
Thank you for your question. I'll start with your second half. The millionaire's tax that was recently passed, as well as online gambling and other fees and taxes from the state, come to localities not directly, very similar to the lottery. They're done through state allocation, through local assistance and local aid. So we do not see any of those monies directly. They go into the state general fund, and then the legislature appropriates monies they see fit to cities and towns, usually based on a formula. So it's not dollar for dollar. The second part, I can speak to the investment in technology. Technology is a capital expense in appropriating local government. There is technology that they do use in their budget, but I'll let Tom talk about the day-to-day budget items that they use. But the capital, the $250,000 is an annual capital influx, usually one time for specific things that they use for the students, Chromebooks, etc.
That's correct. The $250,000 this year, typically the capital budget, always the capital budget is for items with far more of a life than 1 year. Our operating budget is for year-to-year expenses. We're buying devices for students in the classroom, flat panels at the front of the classroom, networking, wiring, things like that that last a longer period of time, multiple years. That's where we're picking up things in the capital budget. And then $250,000 of those are typically a recurring item each year for those purposes.
Thank you, Mr. Dolan. Thank you, Mr. Geary. Further debate? Yes, the gentleman right here.
Spencer Ripley, 3 Marabou Lane. I just had a question relating to the digitization of the Charles Will photo collection. I was just wondering what that $4,000 is going to be contributing to and why that digitization is going to rack up a $4,000 price tag.
Sure, thank you for your question. I'll have Abby Porter, our library director who made this recommendation, come forward. Yeah, Abby, come on up, if you could.
Hi, I'm Abby Porter. I'm the library director. Let me just find my paperwork. So likely it will not cost the total of $4,000. I reached out to sort of the top of the pay scale company just to make sure that we would be covered. But it would get us high quality digitized copies of a 3-volume set of books of all of the buildings built by Charles Wills in Lynnfield and in the surrounding areas. And then they would be put on the library website, organized with metadata, which doesn't seem very difficult, but is very complicated to organize alphabetically. And the books are right now organized chronologically rather than easily searchable. So this would create a searchable database of high quality images for anybody to search anywhere in the country or outside of the country, really. So does that answer your question?
Yes. I was also wondering if, because you just said it probably will not take the full $4,000, I was wondering what was going to happen to that leftover.
That goes back to the town.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for your explanation. Further debate? Hearing and seeing none, we'll proceed to a vote on Article 7. I will inform you that Article 7 does require a 2/3 vote to pass because it does require borrowing money and borrowing funds. So polling will now be open when you see the timer. So polling's now open. Article 7 passes by 2/3 majority. We'll move to Article 7. We'll move to Article 8. My apologies, Mr. Dalton.
I move that the town appropriate the sum of $50,000 by transfer from free cash to the Capital Facilities Fund.
Second.
Article 8 has been moved and seconded. Is there a recommendation from the Board of Selectmen?
The Select Board recommends Article 8.
Is there a recommendation from the Finance Committee?
The Finance Committee recommends Article 8.
Brief explanation.
8, 9 are stabilization funds that we invest in every year, or rainy day accounts, and we recommend that 50,000 of the free cash be sent to the capital facilities fund.
Thank you, Mr. Dolan. Further debate on Article 8? Hearing and seeing none, we'll proceed to a vote on Article 8. If we can pull up the slide, please. If we can open polling. Polling's now open on Article 8. Article 8 passes by majority vote. We'll move to Article 9. Mr. Cannell.
I move the town appropriate the sum of $150,000 by transfer from free cash to the stabilization fund.
Second.
Article 9 has been moved and seconded. Is there a recommendation from the Board of Selectmen?
The Select Board recommends Article 8.
Is there a recommendation from the Finance Committee?
The Finance Committee recommends Article 9.
Just a brief explanation from our Town Administrator.
Sorry. This is a transfer into our stabilization fund, which is the highest it's ever been, that preserves our bond rating and preserves this community in downtimes.
Is there any debate concerning Article 9? Hearing and seeing none, we'll proceed to a vote on Article 9. If we can please pull up the slide. And open polling. Polling's now open concerning Article 9. Article 9 passes by majority. We'll move to Article 10. Mr. Crawford.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I move that the town vote to appropriate during fiscal year 2024 the sum of $845,394 by transfer from Emergency Medical Service Enterprise receipts to pay expenses and contractual services required to fund emergency medical services operations. Said fund to be credited with all fees and charges received during fiscal year 2024 from persons using the service.
Second.
Article 10 has been moved and seconded. Is there a recommendation from the Board of Selectmen?
The Select Board recommends Article 10.
Is there a recommendation from the Finance Committee?
The Finance Committee recommends Article 10.
Is there a brief explanation from our Town Administrator or Town Accountant?
The EMS enterprise is a separate fund whereby the fees are charged for the goods and services, the EMS services, and the operating expenses are paid from. This spending is supported by the user fees and not from tax revenue.
Thank you. Debate on Article 10? Hearing and seeing none, we'll proceed to a vote on Article 10. If we can pull up the slide. Polling will now be open. Article 10 passes by majority. We'll move to Article 11. Mr. Dalton.
I move that the town vote to appropriate during fiscal year 2024 the sum of $1,104,332 by transfer from golf course enterprise receipts to pay expenses and contractual services required to fund golf course operations. Said fund to be credited with all fees and charges received during fiscal year 2024 from persons using the golf courses.
Second.
Article 11 has been moved and seconded. Is there a recommendation from the Board of Selectmen?
The Select Board recommends Article 11.
Is there a recommendation from the Finance Committee?
The Finance Committee recommends Article 11.
Is there a brief explanation?
The golf enterprise is also a separate fund whereby fees are charged for the good or service and the operating expenses are paid from that fund. And these fees are, all the operating expenses are paid from the user fees and no tax revenue.
Thank you. Is there any debate concerning this article? Hearing and seeing none, we'll proceed to a vote on Article 11. If we can please pull up the slide. Voting will now be open. Article 11 passes by majority. We'll move to Article 12. Mr. Cannell.
I move the town vote to establish, with respect to each of the following revolving funds, the following limits and total amounts that may be expended for each such fund in fiscal year 2024. Council on Aging, $85,000. Board of Health, $15,000. Library, $10,000, Recreation, $340,000, Public Work Fields, $100,000, Public Works Merit Center, $10,000.
Second.
Article 12 has been moved and seconded. Is there a recommendation from the Board of Selectmen?
The Select Board recommends Article 12.
Is there a recommendation from the Finance Committee?
The Finance Committee recommends Article 12.
Thank you. Is there a brief explanation? Thank you.
These revolving funds are credited with the receipts received in connection with the programs supported by such funds, and expenditures may be made from the revolving funds without further appropriation.
Thank you. Is there debate regarding Article 12? Hearing and seeing none, we'll proceed to a vote on Article 12. Polling will now be open. Article 12 passes majority. We'll move to Article 13. Mr. Crawford.
Amend Chapter 143 of the general bylaws entitled Fees by deleting Article 7B, Cemetery Fees, and replacing it with the language as it appears in the warrant.
Second.
Article 13 has been moved and seconded. Is there a recommendation from the Board of Selectmen?
The Select Board recommends Article 13.
Is there a recommendation from the Finance Committee?
The Finance Committee recommends Article 13.
Brief explanation from our Town Administrator.
Two parts. One is that we are looking at all our fees to make sure that we are in line with our neighbors, and in that analysis, we realized that we were not. So we adjusted after a study. Secondly, we are, feverishly trying to look at ways to expand our cemetery creatively and responsibly. And this additional revenue will allow us to invest back into the cemetery to look at all options to ensure that the people of Lynnfield will have adequate burial space for decades to come.
Thank you, Mr. Dolan. Is there any debate concerning Article 13? Yes, Mr. Hammond? Mr. Curtin, you make a mistake? I know you have all that paper on your desk that you hide behind, so.
As
Mr.
the
Mullen,
person
can we fix
responsible
that?
for everything that happens in town that's bad.
Mr. Mullen, do we have to make a motion concerning that, or just, we can amend that? There seems to be a typographical error in the warrant booklet that Mr. Heyman pointed out.
That is correct. If someone wishes to make the amendment, it would be to amend Article 13 by changing the fee under 1A from 600 to 1,000.
Okay, so someone want to say so moved? Is there a second? All right, do we need to debate this? Hearing and seeing no debate, we'll proceed to a voice vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? The ayes have it. The amendment carries. We'll proceed back to debate on Article 13. Hearing and seeing none, we'll proceed to a vote on Article 13. If we can pull up the slide. Polling will now be open concerning Article 13. Article 13 passes with the amendment that was read out. We'll proceed to Article 14. Mr. Dalton.
I move that the town vote to accept the provisions of General Laws, Chapter 59, Section 5, Clause 22G, allowing a veteran whose domicile is held by a trustee, conservator, or other fiduciary for the veteran's benefit to claim the same real estate tax exemptions to which such veteran would be entitled if he or she owned the domicile outright.
Second.
Article 14 has been moved and seconded. Is there a recommendation from the Board of Selectmen?
The Select Board recommends Article 14.
Is there a recommendation from the Finance Committee?
The Finance Committee recommends Article 14.
Brief explanation from the Town Administrator.
Victor, our assessor?
Good evening, I'm Victor Santinello, the assessing manager. This basically was enacted about 2 years ago, and it requires local adoption to allow a veteran whose home may be in a trust, like something like an irrevocable trust, to still receive the earned disabled veterans benefit that they otherwise would be entitled to.
Thank you, sir. Is there any debate concerning this article? Hearing and seeing none, we'll proceed to a vote on Article 14. Polling is now open. Article 14 passes by majority. Article 15, Mr. Crawford.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I move that the town vote to accept the provisions of General Laws, Chapter 59, Section 5, Clause 22H, exempting from real estate tax the domicile of surviving parents or guardians of soldiers, sailors, and National Guard members who died in active service or as a result of such service.
I'll second that motion.
Article 15 has been moved and seconded. Is there a recommendation on the Board of Selectmen?
The Select Board recommends Article 15.
Is there a recommendation on the Finance Committee?
The Finance Committee recommends Article 15.
Is there a brief explanation from our assessor?
Hi, it's me again. Adoption of this, again, it was a carve-out a couple of years ago for veterans that requires local adoption. It would enable your Board of Assessors to grant a full tax exemption to Gold Star parents that happen to live in the community.
Thank you, sir. Is there any debate on Article 15? Hearing and seeing, oh, this gentleman right here.
Wayne Perry, Turkey Road, Lynnfield. I find the sentiment splendid. The wording appropriate for the Spanish-American War, which my grandfather served, guarding a lighthouse in Connecticut. But I think the people of the Air Force, the Marines, and the Coast Guard should be included as well. And anybody I know in the Army does not really consider the Air Force to be soldiers, but somebody's got to fly the B-52s.
Brief explanation from our assessor.
It would be for the parents of any person, soldier, sailor, airman, as I was, who died in the line of service. It's adoption of a state law, and this is specifically how the state law is worded, and the intent is not to exclude anyone who's eligible.
Thank you for the explanation. Further debate? Hearing and seeing none, we'll proceed to a vote on Article 15. Polling will now be open. I just want to thank everyone for coming tonight. This is our last article. And I want to thank the young women who passed out the microphones tonight. They did a great job. And Wesley, who did our Pledge of Allegiance. So Article 15 passes by majority. Yes, Ms. Crawford.
I'd just like to add, but go back to Article 6 for one quick second, and I do agree with Mrs. Campbell. I would like to implore our superintendent and our school committee to provide us tax-paying residents with a full line item budget. I think that's only fair. Thank
Is there a motion to adjourn? Second? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. The ayes have it. Thank you, everyone.